This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. I am your host, Miles Taylor. A deadline come and gone. We will talk today about how the Trump administration has threatened to hold federal funding hostage to 14 U.S. states if they don't agree with his immigration crackdown. And if they don't agree to cooperate to become like Minnesota and other states where Donald Trump has sent federal officers, that funding freeze could put American lives in danger. We'll be talking today about that and about how state leaders around the country are planning to fight back. Stick with us to see if your state is on that list. And then, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles has failed to rein in Donald Trump. In an interview in December, she said that she attempted to get the president to limit his revenge campaign against his enemies to the first 90 days of the administration. Well, it turns out he doesn't listen to her, because bombshell reporting from CNN today uncovered the fact that the Trump administration is ramping up daily meetings on how to prosecute his foes. We'll talk about that, but also why that revenge campaign is on very, very thin ice. And finally, Hollywood is no longer in hiding. Yesterday's Grammy Awards were rife with performers, artists, and celebrities punching back against the chaos of the Trump administration. With us today is one of the organizers of those celebrity protests, an advisor to the stars who had a hand in helping them find their inner defiance. This is Defiance Daily, Dispatches for the Defiant. Thank you for joining us today. We open with this threat from the Trump administration related to sanctuary cities. Now, earlier in January, Donald Trump threatened to cut off federal money to 14 U.S. states and the District of Columbia if they didn't comply with his immigration agenda. And he threatened to do that by February 1st. Now, yesterday was February 1st, and it marked the start of that self-imposed deadline from the White House. Yet there was no word from Donald Trump about when this funding freeze would go into effect. A lot is still unknown. But to help break down where we are in this moment, we go to News Nation Morning in America, which had this to say about the story.
Promising a crackdown on cities across the country that are resisting the administration's immigration enforcement policies. News Nation's Marcus Espinoza is here with the details. Marcus, good morning. What do we know about the president's plan to cut off funding for so many cities across the country?
Hey, Hannah, good morning. So as you know, the president will often announce things and then figure them out as they go. And that is seriously the case here as well. Now, the White House tells News Nation's Kelly Meyer that the Office of Management and Budget is currently coordinating with federal agencies to implement the president's plan, and that officials are, quote, gathering a complete report of funds being spent in each state that has a history of fraud. There are still a lot of unanswered questions, though, including whether this will target specific programs or be a more broad directive. This is also already being fought in the courts, and judges have been reluctant to let the federal government use funding cuts as a hammer. The president has not laid out which locations will be affected specifically, but the Department of Justice is currently listing 18 sanctuary cities on its website. They include New York, LA, Chicago, Philly, and Seattle, among others. Trump's post and comments specifically, they reference cities, but do not address whether funding cuts would apply to 13 sanctuary states and 4 sanctuary counties as well. But whatever happens, local governments are preparing for that potential impact. Experts say the cuts could affect departments such as housing, public health, emergency management, and also education. The U.S. Community for Refugees and Immigrants says this decision to cut funding would undermine public safety in America's communities.
So let me add to that reporting from News Nation. Let me add this. When Donald Trump announced he was going to do this in a social media missive of all places, this is what he had to say. Effective February 1st, no more payments will be made by the federal government. No more payments to states for their corrupt criminal protection centers known as sanctuary cities. Now, that included 14 mostly Democratic-controlled states and the District of Columbia, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, the state of Washington, and as I noted, Washington, District of Columbia. Those are the places that are being targeted by this administration. Now, if you listen to the president's words, he's going to shut off all federal funding, which has led critics to say this could be potentially catastrophic. We wrote about it this morning on defiance.news. If you go check out our lead story on defiance.news, we talk about the implications of this, including FEMA disaster aid, Homeland Security grants, counterterrorism funding, life-saving healthcare and social services, a zillion things that could be put in danger because Donald Trump wants to punish blue states for not agreeing with his masked agent crackdown that we've already seen in Minnesota. I want to bring into the conversation my Defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz, to talk about this. Xander, we're kind of on pins and needles to see where all of this ends up. But the thing that we wrote about this morning is that if Donald Trump does this, it is one of the most impeachable offenses of his presidency. And the reason for that being...
Until we get the fancy graphic, I have it written down. There's our impeachable offense alert. I was about to say the same thing.
Who needs a producer when, like, Xander can do all the title cards?
I was torn between that one and this one. He can't do it now. Oh, can you see it now? He can't do that. He can't do that alert.
I mean, we make light of it, but here's the thing. It's very simple. I'm going to give people a U.S. democracy one-on-one. Congress passes laws. The president is supposed to execute them. When Congress says you must spend money to give people health care in Nebraska, when Congress says you must spend this money to protect the people of New York City from being murdered by terrorists, the president doesn't have the option to say, I don't want to spend that money or that money. He doesn't have a pocket veto. He doesn't have a line item veto. He doesn't have the ability to just freeze that money. He's supposed to go execute it. He's literally talking, Xander, about taking hundreds of billions of dollars and holding them hostage. I want to get your reaction to that, in addition to those great title cards that you wrote.
Well, I think you mentioned this, but he tried to do this in his first term. Same exact thing. Big sweeping threats, immediate lawsuits from the states. The court shut it down. They tried to cover their ass by, enforcing some like weird fringe penalties using the DOJ, but they didn't really matter at the end of the day. And the end result is nothing happened. We use the taco analogy a lot. That Trump always chickens out. And I think it's important the only reason this is effective at all is when people capitulate ahead of time and try to keep their head down and not get caught up. So I wanted to create a new acronym, TACI, which is Trump attacks, create idols. Every time Trump attacks folks and they stand up, they become famous, they become powerful, they become strong, they become presidential candidates when they were previously just random governors. You know what I mean? And so I want to not only get ahead of, people capitulating in some ways, but say, this is actually your opportunity to be a star. If you weren't one already, go ahead, take the lead, fight back. There's no evidence that there's anything to fear from fighting back, and especially in this case, because this has already happened. We've already been through this once. And so you're extra safe in talking some smack to the president. Nothing's going to happen here.
I love that. I think technically that acronym, Trump attacks, create idols, is TASI. I think that's TASI.
I know, but it didn't sound the same as taco. I know. I thought this already. It didn't have to. We're
going to have to work on that. But look, you're right. I think that's something that people forget. Last year was all about the cowardice. This year's all about the courage, is because people forgot when Trump was attacking that when you fight back, not only does it elevate your profile and give you more power and leverage, but it leads him to back down. Like, this is why taco even became a thing. The only times Trump chickens out are when his authority is challenged. That's why he does these things. He puts up these trial balloons to see how much resistance he's going to get. Great example, Greenland, right? Greenland was a great example of a crazy policy Donald Trump was barreling towards. He was trying to get leverage. He didn't get the leverage he wanted. Europe freaked out, stood in solidarity. The American people opposed him, and he flew to Davos with this most lackluster, bizarre speech ever and retreated from the position.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean we're out of the woods. Donald Trump still tries to find the authority to come roaring back and do his thing, but it's harder when people push back against him.
Yeah. I think it's this whole art of the deal thing, right? It's like this is how this guy's been negotiating his whole life, where he says something crazy and he hopes people meet him halfway, which is a huge win in his book. It reminds me of, this is a random story. I went to the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, right? And I tried to buy this little miniature hookah keepsake. And it was for like 100 lira, I think is the currency. And I was so excited to negotiate. And I was like, I'll take it for 80. And the guy's like, fine, 90. And then a Turkish guy came up behind me. He's like, I'll take it for 10 lira. And the guy's like, fine, 25. I thought I was doing a good job negotiating. But there's a style of negotiation that I wasn't privy to that I think Trump uses all the time, which is just saying something absolutely crazy and then getting some massive win that you never expected to get because people meet you halfway or they capitulate or whatnot. So this has been in his playbook for a long time, way before he was a politician. It doesn't work in this venue in the same way. Yeah. And I think we're seeing that over and over again, especially as people realize he doesn't actually have the fucking hammer. It's all an act.
Yeah. Well, we're going to ask you to retrieve that hookah just to show us here on the program. That would be a great prop. I'm looking around for props that might be interesting. Hey, here's an interesting prop. Our producer's going to be like, "You guys are off. You guys are off schedule. We got to hit another story." I don't know if I showed this one time. This is Stalin vodka, right? This is original Stalin vodka, and I have this on the shelf as a reminder of what despots do. They stick their face on everything. Now, the similarities are not lost on me that Donald Trump had his own vodka brand and is trying to stick his name on everything in this country. But I say that because, Xander, it goes back to your point about tacky or TACI, T-A-C-I. Trump always creates these idols. Is that when he tries to slap his name on everything and intimidate the population by saying, I own it, the people who stand up boldly, the Gavin Newsoms or the J.B. Pritzkers, get him to step down because he's not prepared to actually confront someone who's challenging him. And, I'll give a very big example of this. As you said, Donald Trump has done this before. Well, he has. And it was impeachable the first time that he tried to do this on a much smaller scale. In 2019, if folks remember, Donald Trump withheld several $100 million in military equipment to Ukraine. This was illegal because Congress said spend the money. Donald Trump said, I don't want to. I want to try to get Ukraine to open an investigation into the Biden crime family, and then I'll give them the money. Well, look, Donald Trump would have gotten away with that were it not for the fact that Congress says, hell no, that's illegal, and we're going to impeach you for it. He got impeached for it. He was forced to give the money to Ukraine and comply with our obligations to defend our Ukrainian allies. But that's what it takes. It takes the pushing back. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact, Xander, that those $100 million that he was impeached over pale in comparison to the hundreds of billions with a B dollars that Donald Trump could be doing the same thing to as early as this week.
It's crazy. This guy's created so many crises that we have to remind people about his impeachment. There's only been a couple in U.S. history. And it's like, if you remember, this also happened. The guy got impeached for withholding foreign aid money.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. Look, this is in anticipation of this. Here's what some state leaders are doing. State leaders are preparing for these federal funding shutdowns, and they're ready this time. You've got state attorney generals who are ready to sue the Trump administration if they withhold federal money simply because they're in blue states that have so-called sanctuary cities. And I just want to be clear about sanctuary cities. I used to help run the Department of Homeland Security. Sanctuary cities are not cities, contrary to the name, that are like creating underground railroads of immigrants that have broken the law and they're hiding them from federal authorities. That's not what a sanctuary city does. A sanctuary city simply does the minimum amount of compliance with federal immigration agencies that they're allowed to do. What they don't do is go above and beyond to help federal immigration agencies go round up people that they're targeting. They'd say, you know what, we're not going to comply with that. All right. It's not that they're hiding people and trying to keep the law from being enforced. And so there's a complete overstatement here when the Trump administration suggests that these are criminal cities. They are absolutely not. And I think that loses sight of the bigger picture here, which is that the president of the United States cannot say that lives of Americans in blue states are worth less to the federal government than lives of Americans in red states. But if they start cutting off federal assistance to blue states in this country, especially emergency assistance, social services programs, that will be an admission that the federal government is treating Americans based on how they are voting. That is illegal. That is unconstitutional. And if I was in Congress right now, I would be drafting articles of impeachment. But at least we've got state officials pushing back. And one thing I'll say on that front, Xander, and this also buttresses your point, is that this has worked in the past. Last year, Donald Trump tried to cut counterterrorism funding to New York City. He tried to say, I'm not going to give New York City money to fight terrorists, which is insane. It's the most targeted city in the world by terrorists, but it's because he doesn't like New York. He wanted to get leverage over New York. And what did Governor Kathy Hochul of New York do? She didn't back down. She stood her ground. They sued, and a federal judge said, you can't do this. And the Trump administration chickened out. They backed down. And to your point, Xander, they created an idol in those circumstances. They showed that Kathy Hochul was willing to stand up to this administration. That's what states should be doing here. Let me take us into our next story, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it on the back end. Just this morning, CNN reports that the Justice Department is moving to aggressively reboot Donald Trump's so-called weaponization agenda. Starting today, Attorney General Pam Bondi's weaponization working group will allegedly begin meeting daily, every single day, with instructions to produce results within 2 months, according to a source familiar with the plan. The group, that weaponization working group, was created shortly after Bondi took office to review what is labeled as politicized justice under the Biden administration. Its targets include the Trump investigations led by former special counsel Jack Smith, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, New York Attorney General Letitia James, and federal probes tied to January 6th attacks on the U.S. Capitol. Despite operating for nearly a year, the group has produced no public findings, and CNN reports that Trump has grown deeply impatient about the slowness of prosecuting his adversaries, even pressuring the Justice Department's leadership and reprimanding U.S. attorneys for failing to bring cases he wants pursued. At least that's how it's supposed to be proceeding. But Bondi says critics note that under her leadership, the department has instead advanced investigations into several of Trump's political adversaries anyway, including former FBI Director James Comey, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, and senior Federal Reserve officials. Your own host has been placed under one of these investigations for the crime of telling Americans how bad it was inside the first Trump administration. A Justice Department spokesperson confirmed the daily meetings, but declined to provide specifics, citing ongoing investigations. And within hours of that announcement, another major shakeup followed, with signs that Trump's revenge agenda is actually faltering because so many of his people are either incompetent or because civil servants with a conscience are pushing back. We start with the first category. Ed Martin, the former head of this weaponization working group, is expected to leave the Justice Department within weeks, according to sources familiar with his plans. Martin was installed after failing to win Senate confirmation as the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C., and was once described as one of Trump's favorite prosecutors. But sources tell CNN that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche sharply limited Martin's authority, sidelining him from the very effort he was supposed to lead. As one source familiar with the efforts of the weaponization working group told CNN, quote, "The fact is that Ed was given all the opportunity to lead this group and deliver on its mission, but he did nothing. Others across the department have since been making great progress in doing the work that should have been happening under Ed's leadership." The sequence is striking. The administration announces an aggressive reboot of its justice priorities, and within hours, the official who once ran that effort is on his way out. No successor has been named. Then, over the weekend, a former chief of staff to Pam Bondi told his Twitter followers to DM him if they were willing to serve as loyal, Trump-aligned U.S. attorneys. Critics mocked this as unusual and a sad recruitment tactic, but also as alarming since U.S. attorneys do not exist to serve the president's agenda. They exist to enforce the law. And finally, there have been more reports of government lawyers resigning or getting pushed out of U.S. attorneys' offices, as well as recent FBI leaders getting fired or sidelined in Georgia and Minnesota for refusing to follow DOJ's lead. And so, as always, the president's team has turned to social media shitposting circles to find the best of the best. Let me bring Xander back into the conversation. Xander, there it is. Impeachable offense alert. You got to keep bringing that up. You couldn't be more right. I mean, look, the president of the United States is not allowed to launch investigations for political purposes. I mean, you and I have been saying this since the very beginning of these investigations into Letitia James and James Comey and others. You cannot start an investigation because the president's mad and wants you investigated. That alone is selective and vindictive prosecution. And doing so is impeachable because it's illegal.
The weaponization working group. Miles, I'm going to read you names of similar groups in the past, and you tell me who created them. The People's Court. Who do you think created the People's Court? Similar
I don't
goal.
know. Was it that guy?
No, that guy's next up, actually. People's Court, Adolf Hitler. The NKVD review troikas was that guy, Joseph Stalin. How about the National Intelligence Directorate? Excuse my terrible Spanish. That was Augusto Pinochet. And the Judicial Reform Commissions were in Peru, as a hint. Alberto Fujimori. So just as normal as putting your face on vodka bottles is creating commissions like this to investigate your enemies and prosecute them. Not a good sign for democracy. A very tried and true tactic in the despot's playbook.
It totally is. And, I think it's so on the nose that they would create a weaponization working group to fight the weaponization of the government, and in doing so, just weaponize the government to go after the president's enemy. There was another report the other month, Xander, that said, and we wrote about this on defiance.news, if people want to go find it, that this interagency working group that's supporting DOJ includes officials from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the CIA, and other intelligence agencies. Let me say that again. The president's got a working group to look into prosecuting his foes that includes representatives from the intelligence community, representatives that work in agencies whose mission is supposed to focus on spying on bad guys abroad.
Yeah, importantly, foreign intelligence agencies. Totally.
That's right. They're foreign intelligence agencies. Yet those spies are sitting on the president's revenge working group, which now, according to this CNN article, is going to be meeting every single day with the goal of charging more people in the next 2 months. I would not be surprised, Xander, and I don't say this facetiously, I would not be surprised if I look out that window and see FBI cars rolling up here at my house in the next 2 months, because they've said, ramp up these prosecutions against the president's enemies. This is crazy town. I mean, in our case, as you know, we're ready as hell to fight. But we cannot lose sight of the total abuse of power that's happening here by a crazy man in the White House.
Yeah, man, if you fight hard, you might be a presidential candidate yourself, as we've seen with some of the other folks.
Hey, if the we only can't thing cry about it, we can definitely laugh about it.
My one reflection there is, in some ways, that you see the lack of civic education by Americans show up in that, like, this doesn't create this red flashing, alert signs for people, similar to the deployment of troops against the governor's wishes. Like, I don't think the average American understood how unprecedented that was and how scary that is to be happening. The use of foreign intelligence agencies, when you've worked in Washington like you have, Miles, there's a huge separation between the domestic groups and the foreign groups intentionally, right? And so, myself, we were calling me the layman last week, because I've got my education in kind of the normal pop culture ways as a lot of our viewers and members. I mean, I understood this through the movie Sicario, right? Where they made a big deal about the CIA not being able to work domestically. But we're having the dual challenge as kind of leaders of, the Defiance, not just us, but everyone involved in this, to educate as well as, share the news of the day, because sometimes there isn't the reaction that these actions really do justify. We're seeing more and more like the appropriate scale of reactions, but for insiders like you, I'm sure this raises alarm bells in a serious way.
Alarm bells, yes. But let me also say the good news to everyone is that since Donald Trump started this revenge campaign, as soon as he got back to office, it has floundered and floundered and floundered. That doesn't mean damage hasn't been done. I mean, y'all are sick of me talking about the personal impact it's had on our family, but I've talked about that so people understand how real this is, because, the Associated Press found that Donald Trump engaged in a targeted act of revenge more than once a day last year. There was, as of November, more than 400 individuals and institutions targeted for punitive, politicized investigation and punishment because they were on the other side of Donald Trump. We've never, ever, ever seen anything like that in American history. That destroys lives. It's illegal to do. Donald Trump should be impeached for it. But also, his campaign is failing. Why? Because people are pushing back. The cases are getting thrown out. The judges are pushing back. The targets of this revenge, who would have otherwise listened to their friends and family and just laid low, are saying, no, I'm not going to lay low. I'm going to fight this. And just like we talked about in the last segment about states pushing back, when the individual targets of Trump's revenge push back, Donald Trump tacos. He chickens out, or he at least draws back. And so there is a signal being sent here to fight back. And a great example of it is just last week. What happened to Georgia Fort, Minnesota journalist, Don Lemon, Minnesota journalist? These people didn't just let themselves get arrested by the Trump administration, be the targets of Trump's revenge, and capitulate. They came out boldly and said they were going to fight back. And those of you who are watching, late last week, unplanned, helped us jump in and defend them as well. In fact, last I checked, we have raised close to $40,000 to support those independent journalists in their fight, just in the span of 48 or 72 hours. That's extraordinary. And so that's my message, Xander, is people are standing up and they're fighting back, which leads us to our third story and to our guest. Oh, before we do that, take a look here. If you didn't see that, because we did have to cancel our program on Friday so we could help stand this up after the arrests of journalists Don Lemon and Georgia Fort, we launched a Defending Independent Journalists Fund for those two to be the first recipients of that support. If people want to chip into that, or if you just want to share it with others, you can go to defiance.org/reporters. This is, already, I think, had, a potentially big impact. We've been in touch with the legal teams for both Don Lemon and Georgia Fort to make sure that we can provide support to them. But Xander, it's even bigger than those journalists, because what we have to do in moments like this is band together with those folks when they're targeted, before they have a chance to step up and create a legal defense fund, to send a message. We're not going to let the administration ruin people's lives. They're not going to be alone. We're going to crowdsource the courage to stand behind them.
I agree. That was a great speech, Miles Taylor. I have nothing to add.
Unplanned. And thanks to our producer for pulling that up. But yeah, folks didn't see that last week. We were going to try to take a chill day on Friday. I was traveling, and then I was on the way to the airport, and Xander was sleeping. And I called him and basically woke him up and said, we got to do something about this, because this administration is trying to flood the zone with illegality. And we've got to be able to respond really, really quickly to stand up for folks and send a message that the intimidation will not work.
Miles, I think the sequence of events is you woke me up, you said, we got to do something about this. And then you said, I pushed up our coffee. We're live in 5 minutes to talk about it. I think was the actual sequence of events.
Xander, wake up. We need to make an announcement on a live stream. Clothes or no clothes. We're going live.
Yeah.
It's credit to you. You put on clothes.
Yeah. It would have been more. I think it would have been a distracting live stream otherwise.
Well, I'll say this, my friend. This ties into our third story of the day and our guest, which is that it's not just the targets of Trump's revenge standing up. It's not just journalists standing up, ordinary Americans standing up at the grass tops. People that other people look up to, they are standing up. And you saw that in a big way last night in Los Angeles when artists and musicians gathered for the 68th annual Grammy Awards. At a time when it's so important to speak out, many, many people there seized the opportunity, whether it was on stage, or on the red carpet, or on the margins, or at the after parties, or in pre-interviews. We go to Access Hollywood to recap exactly that last night.
Artists aren't holding back on music's biggest night. Bad Bunny, Billie Eilish, and more winners at the 2026 Grammy Awards spoke out against immigration and customs enforcement amid heated backlash for the agency's ongoing operations in multiple U.S. cities. Bad Bunny earned a standing ovation for making his thoughts clear when accepting Best Música Urbana album honors.
Before I say thanks to God, I'm gonna say eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans, and we are Americans.
Billie followed suit with searing remarks of her own after winning Song of the Year for her hit Wildflower alongside brother Phineas.
No one is illegal on stolen land. Yeah, it's just really hard to know what to say and what to do right now. And I feel really hopeful in this room, and I feel like we just need to keep fighting and speaking up and protesting, and our voices really do matter, and the people matter, and I say sorry.
The A-listers weren't alone in voicing their outrage. Other attendees made a statement with Ice Out pins on the red carpet and during the show, with Justin and Hailey Bieber, Bon Iver, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, and more all sporting the accessory. Best New Artist Olivia Dean also touched upon the topic on stage with a personal anecdote.
I want to say I'm up here as a granddaughter of an immigrant. I wouldn't be here. I'm a product of bravery, and I think those people deserve to be celebrated.
Well, Xander, I want to bring someone into the conversation. Before I do, let me just provide a little background. With us today is Michael Skolnik, who was involved in supporting some of those efforts. He's the founding partner of SOSE, a creative agency that works with companies, nonprofits, organizations, and movements to create campaigns rooted in compassion, courage, and equity. And I noted that in his profile in the New York Times, it identified him as, quote, the man you go to if you want to leverage the power of celebrity and reach digital media to soften the ground for social change. We need someone like that more than ever. Earlier in his career, Michael spent over a decade as a film director and producer, as well as building multi-million-dollar digital media companies. Let's welcome him into the conversation. Michael Skolnik, thanks for joining us.
What's going on, fellas? Nice to be here.
Michael Skolnik in the house. I got to say, before we even get into this, I'll say about Skolnik what Musk said about Trump. I love Michael Skolnik about as much as one man can love another man.
Oh, no.
He's always absolutely the most.
Look, I'm going to leave you guys to just enjoy each other's company.
Yes. Xander calls me to, get on the phone when I'm still drinking my coffee. So
Michael, can you tell me this? Like, why was last night kind of I don't know if I want to call it a watershed moment, but we spent so much of last year with celebrities kind of dancing around, the Trump stuff. I don't know if it was their agents or, studios saying, hey, like, don't touch the politics. It's scary right now. Or just them being freaked out by Trump's revenge machine. But I felt like last night it seemed to just be breaking through.
And let's not forget, it was on CBS. Right, which
that's right.
I'm sure Donald was calling Barry Weiss at all hours of the evening, trying to get them to take the show off the air. And also Trevor Noah, which Trump went after this morning and said he's going to sue Trevor for talking about the Epstein's Island. I think the artist in the second day of Black History Month, Paul Robeson, one of the great, if not the greatest, American artists of all time. Said many, many years ago that artists are the gatekeepers of truth, were civilization's most radical voice. And in this moment, what's happened in Minnesota in the past few weeks, what's happened across this country with ICE over the past number of months, the people have begged and pleaded for people to support them, and people who, as you said, Miles, who they look up to and who they care about. And the artists have responded, and they responded last night. I think certainly with Benito and Bad Bunny, Benito, it's his year. And we know with the Super Bowl coming up over the weekend, There's a lot of speculation he'll make a comment there. But he sort of laid a lot of the groundwork for people to speak their truth. And they did last night. I mean, Kehlani started it off the night in the early sort of pregame of the Grammys and saying something. And then during the, and also Shabuzi, and then during the show itself, it just felt like people had the confidence and the courage to stand up and say something as well as they should. And, you know, it went throughout the entire evening. It wasn't one person. It wasn't one moment. It was all night long.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think, you know, we've been talking about this a lot the last couple of weeks, that I think, and this is maybe credit to the people in Minneapolis and you know, the Comeys and Letitia James of the world. People are starting to see that this administration loses the confrontations it gets into. And we are seeing that, you know, we hear courage is contagious. It felt like that happened in Hollywood or within the music industry last night. It felt like people all of a sudden decide, all right, we are going to have strength in numbers. Let's make it happen. And that doesn't happen without organization. You know, we've been talking a lot about the need for infrastructure to support this. Can you walk us through what the kind of campaign heading into the Grammys was like, and that moment where everyone started becoming aware that they could provide safety in numbers and stand up in this moment?
Yeah, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and there are these cultural moments every year that people watch, whether it's the Grammys, whether it's the Oscars, whether it's Super Bowl, whether it's the Golden Globes, and there's always a good group of people trying to organize. In this case, there's a great group of people who I've known for a very long time who got the iced out pins on a number of people at the Golden Globes. Now the Grammys, you'll see them more at the Oscars as well. And you know, it's sort of an underground network of friends that we've been working together for a very long time. They say, who do you know? Where can you get pins? Can you get them to the pre-party on Saturday night where folks can take them and put in their pocket and then wear them Sunday? Can you send a basket of pins to somebody who's working with a bunch of artists? And you know, we all come from the arts. You know, the people who do this organizing work are people who have come from the arts. I made movies for many, many years, and I spent my entire life in the arts. And so when a lot of these artists we grew up with, we came up with, we've known since they were not famous. And we've worked with many of them over decades to make sure they feel comfortable, as you said, and courageous to speak their truth. But, you know, Xander, I was in Minnesota last Saturday when Alex Preddy was murdered. I went there on purpose, but I happened to be there on the day that sort of shit hit the fan. And I was there on Nicollet and 26 for 7 hours in the middle of a fucking war zone of ICE, whatever you want to call them, shooting, you know, canisters of tear gas after tear gas after tear gas, and they had just killed somebody, you know, hours prior. I got there 10 minutes after Alex was shot, so minutes prior. And when you see the courage of the freaking people who are standing in, I mean, I saw old people, elders standing in front of guns and saying to them, you already killed one of us, kill another one, shoot me. If you're so tough, shoot me. And the courage of the people is contagious, and the artists are a reflection of that. And they make music and they make movies and they make television shows as a reflection. Unfortunately, you got a guy in the White House who also understands that. It's a reason why he closed, you know, the Kennedy Center yesterday for 2 years, because he knows that the artists are not on his side. It's the reason why they spent $8 million buying tickets for Melania's movie that opened in 2,300 theaters and had a per screen average of $1,500 because nobody went to see it. Mm-hmm. You know, Hollywood Reporter said it was the biggest box office opening. That's bullshit. Taylor Swift was the biggest box office opening documentary, and they just bought tickets. They just stuffed ballots. And so he understands that, unfortunately, the power of art, the power of culture. And on the Democrat side, on the progressive side, we haven't invested in it. Even though it's our people, we haven't invested in it. We haven't put the infrastructure in place. And so companies like ours and friends of ours, we've been scraping together for decades, you know, working with the biggest artists in the planet, holding their hand because we love them and we know their reach, and we know if they had the moment to speak out, they would. But they need support, they need infrastructure, they need mentorship, they need guidance. And last night, it was there. And just you have artists who, Kehlani, she'll say what she wants, right? And she did. But you have artists, Bieber and Haley, wearing the pin. Billie Eilish always says what she wants, you know, always speaks the truth. But, you know, to say fuck ICE on CBS, on national television,
hell yeah.
and she's going to sell out, you know, 25,000 seats in 6 months.
Well, that leads to my next question. Skolnik, you've been involved in some of these movements that have been able to go from a moment to persevere for months or years, right? You were involved in March for Our Lives. You were involved in the Climate March, the Women's March, et cetera. How do we keep the momentum going with, the music industry elite, the Hollywood elite? What exists or what needs to be built so we continue to get that grass tops voice? Because right now there's this exciting opportunity to volley from grass tops to grassroots and back forth and embolden each other. Is there something that exists or something that needs to exist to make sure that momentum continues?
Yeah, I mean, look, the arts have historically been funded in this country by the wealthy and by the elite or by foundations, and it's inaccessible. Right? Broadway tickets or concert tickets or sports tickets, right? The World Cup, like they're inaccessible for average people to go because they're so freaking expensive to attend. But art is part of everyone's life. I mean, I ask people like, what piece of art changed your life? And I think for those who are watching, think about, was it your wedding song that you practiced with your loved one, that dance in front of your family, to that one song that between the two of you as a married couple meant so much to you? Was it a book that you read as a child that changed your life? Was it a movie that you watched 75 times? Was it a TV show that you binged this weekend? Right? There's so much art in our life that moves us. But unfortunately, the funding mechanisms, it's so hard to make because it's expensive, and B, there is not any kind of subsidies from the state in this country where you go across the world and you have subsidies from the state. I'm not advocating for that, but what I would advocate for is that if we build infrastructure where small dollar donations, I like small dollar donations going to political candidates. I like small dollar donations going to movements and nonprofit organizations and certainly movements like yours, like Defiance. But what if small dollar donations also went to artists to make things and create things and put things out quickly? What if we made 50,000 hoodies with whistles on them and gave them out for free to people across the country? What if we built a statue for Alex Preddy and Renee Good in Minnesota next week, not next year? What if we're able to project onto the Kennedy Center this weekend that it's a failure of state to close that beautiful, amazing building that has housed so much incredible art over the history of the past 75 years, instead of just closing it because Trump's now in charge and nobody wants to play it? So if we're able to build infrastructure where there was small dollar donations, but people could feel the art in their life and not just have to spend $1,000 or $500 or $250 a ticket in the World Cup, $5,000 or $8,000 for the tickets. I think that we could really, move hearts and minds. Arts are some of the greatest change makers in this country. And they're not, and some of them just have no infrastructure for funding or no infrastructure for distribution. And now it's all digital. But we're seeing people in the streets. We're seeing people at live events. And so I think we have to diversify where we're meeting people and where we're reaching people.
Dude, you got my Defiance sense tingling. I got to put my hat on. One of the things that I want to point out,
you got to turn it forward when it's tingling.
Yeah. It's tingling. We got to get you one of these, brother. We're going to shoot it over to you.
I love that.
One of the things that you said struck home to me, which is like, look, I speak from, having spent a career in Washington as a Republican and as a conservative. And I'll say, Republicans always mock the influence of celebrity. We're like, real America doesn't care. What's so amazing about this moment is, who cares? Donald Trump cares about whether these celebs stand with him or not. I mean, you just mentioned, just in the past week, the Kennedy Center. He's lost his shit that celebrities are not going to the Kennedy Center and they're not performing. So he closed it down for renovations. The Grammys. People normally are like, who cares what the celebs say at the Grammys? The president does. He was threatening people. He was watching it. He was so upset. Man, that struck a nerve with him. Bad Bunny. He said he's not going to the Super Bowl because Bad Bunny's going to be there. He can't help himself. This guy is a child.
Too far away. He says it's
too far away. I mean, so I would say right now to anyone who has any doubt that getting these influencers on side matters, they shouldn't, because like nothing gets at this guy like losing the celebrities in this country. And I will say, I think it also hits home, Skolnik, to him, the losers that he ends up having. I mean, as Republicans, we were used to getting sort of the leftover celebrities supporting us. But, Nicki Minaj is the latest one that stands out to me. Is there was this great moment in the past week where she claims she got a Trump gold card or whatever, right? Which is like his little, his little gimmick to try to get people to spend a couple $1 million to get a fast-tracked visa to the United States. And hilariously, Skolnik, this is what she got for it, is she proudly touted this golden visa that she got from the Trump administration, this gold card for supporting Donald Trump and demonstrating her fealty. And even the White House had to come out and clarify here that it was just a memento and not an actual visa document. This is what you
$1 million
get.
memento.
If you sell your soul to Donald Trump, you get a cheap wrinkled suit, or you get a shitty vodka bottle, or you get a useless memento, gold visa card. Like, the symbolism is just too on the nose even for that situation.
You're right. There's a great debate that we can have, and I'm open to the debate around whether celebrity influencers can really move people to vote, or how to vote, or where to vote, and register to vote. And I think those debates are good ones to have, of who are the people to really move people across this country to engage civically. There is no debate that we are in a culture war in this country. And the culture makers that care about compassion, or as Bad Bunny said last night, care about loving thy neighbor, which is biblical. Those culture makers need support, because Donald Trump understands culture. He understands culture very, very well, and he will use it to divide this country. Nikki, as you saw last night, Trevor made a joke about her. She wasn't invited to the Grammys. She's not welcome back into that artist community because she went to the White House and held his hand, right? So artists, they are not forgiving in the same way that some politicians might be, or some movements might be. They're saying, look, we are going to stand on the right side of history and with the people, and we will not apologize for it. And that's what makes it so powerful.
Well, Skolnik, before we let you go, I got to ask, you asked earlier, think about a moment where arts really impacted you and stuck with you throughout your life and got you to engage more in civic life. What's the answer? If you had to answer that question.
Oh, man, I have so many good ones. It was great to see Lauren last night pay tribute to D'Angelo and Roberta Flack. I mean, the Miseducation Lauryn Hill was something that I just was mind-blowing to me of how great. And I mean, Stevie Wonder's Hotter Than July. My mother used to play that record in the house all the time. And I saw Stevie last week in LA at an event, MLK event. I was just looking at him like, damn, like what that man did for my mother. I was like, I got to take my mom to see Stevie Wonder before he ends, touring. I saw, my parents took me to the theater when I was 8 years old. They took me to see this play, a guy, Charles Bush, a great actor. He was in drag, and my parents were hippies, and they were like, oh, we're going to go see this drag show. And I was 8. And now I see all this, debate over taking kids to, hear drag queens read books at libraries. And I was like, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. And I really appreciated my parents opening my eyes at a very young age to all kinds of people. The arts have been, I listen to music. I mean, right now, like I can't, there's a beautiful musician, Kayola. I listen to him all day long. He's got a great few albums, solo albums out from his band Mo Lauda. So I want to fly to Barcelona to see Rosalia, because her album Lux is like astonishing. I could go on and on. I'm in theater tomorrow night. I'm going to London this weekend to see more theater. The arts is a big part of my life, but so is sports, so is politics. So I can shoot the shit with. I played football for 10 years. I can shoot the shit with the best of them. But the arts is in my heart, man.
Fine, Michael Skolnik, I will give it to you. I understand why Xander thinks you're great. And I guess that means we're going to have you on the program more. But seriously, man, let me just say, folks are really grateful for everything that you're doing, and you're mobilizing a hell of a lot of people to be on the right side of history. So we're grateful for that, brother.
Grateful for you guys. You guys are doing it as well. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you, brother.
Michael Skolnik, everyone. He'll be back with us soon. Man, he's great, Xander. I know
Isn't he the best?
You wax poetic about him. Shit, I hate telling you you're right.
Accept it. Accept the love you're feeling.
Well, look, while we're on good vibes, let's chat, brother, about who is joining the Defiance today. This is always our favorite segment of the show. Although talking to Skolnik gives it a run for its money.
Uh-huh.
Look, we have seen that as this administration has ramped up its deportation agenda, a lot of families have been losing track of their loved ones. And that's a scary thing. I mean, I could go on for a long time and talk about the chaos that resulted from the family separation policy when human beings, parents, didn't know where our government, the DHS that I was working at, had put their children. This is not what should happen. People should not wonder, where is my family member? And someone on social media, an airplane watching enthusiast, has decided to use his skills to help fellow Minnesotans find people that have been taken. His name is Nick Benson, and let's take a look.
The deportees are in shackles. They're chained at their wrists and their ankles, and they are checking them to make sure they are safe to get on the airplane, and then they hobble up the steps. It's the network of airplanes and airlines that are moving deportees around in the United States. We're keeping track of where they're going, and then we are keeping a count of the number of people that are getting on and off of the flights. I mean, it's number of flights has been increasing, and the transparency has been decreasing. Many of the airplanes that are doing this work are now on the FAA's LAD list, or privacy list. It's the same mechanism that like Taylor Swift and Elon use to maintain privacy. Doing patrol work on the ground. We see grandparents that are terrified. We see restaurant workers that are afraid. A couple of weeks ago, we saw someone who was still in their Amazon uniform getting boarded onto the flight.
Well, Xander, our answer to the question today, who is joining the Defiance, is Nick Benson, for trying to bring some additional transparency to the administration's immigration crackdown. And, I just like put this in the category of ordinary folks who are jumping in and trying to unmask the craziness.
Yeah, you never know what skills are going to be needed. And I think as more people jump in with their specific skill set, like if you asked him a couple of years ago, are you going to be a key fighter, against authoritarianism? He probably would have said, why would I possibly be a lead activist in this? And then all of a sudden the skill set is so useful, so helpful. I'm so happy he's out there doing it. And I'd also love to know which airlines are partnering with the Trump administration so we can do something about that too.
I also just have to say, like, having seen this from the inside of the Department of Homeland Security, how bad the situation actually is. People need to know. And it's bad in two ways. One, this administration is indifferent to the human suffering, genuinely. They don't care that families are being ripped apart. They're happy about it. But there's an even worse element to this that is like bureaucratic and banal in its nature, which is the government itself has a very hard time even understanding what it's doing to these people. Think of it as like a FedEx that doesn't give a fuck about its job. That's just kind of losing people in the numbers. And I remember this during the family separation debacle when a small group of us almost got fired by the administration for speaking out internally, for trying to get the White House to reverse course. We ultimately did get them to reverse course and to end that policy. But I remember getting briefed up on what was happening. It was like there were Excel spreadsheets where the agencies were trying to track, oh, yeah, we took the kids and we put them in custody so they're not in these ICE facilities, and here's how we're tracking them. It's like, what? You're like using Excel spreadsheets to try to figure out where these kids are at? Like, this is a 3-year-old child of a human being, and like your data is fat fingered and it's wrong, and it's going to take weeks or months or years to get that person back together. I mean, it is such a horrifically bad analog system that completely undervalues the human life that it's managing. So those two compounding factors, just a broken bureaucracy and a leadership with evil intent, means that these people are experiencing suffering they should never have to experience.
I don't think I can comment right now. I think my internal thoughts are not aligned with our peaceful and lawful slogan. So I'm just going to be quiet right now. It's so infuriating, harming children. I have a 3-year-old. You said 3-year-old. It's just, I don't know. Okay. I'm happy to let's do Q&A.
Yeah, let's do Q&A. Yeah. I was about to take it high and right too. Whoa, 0 to 60. It's good. You and I are self-censoring, not saying things that'll get us in trouble on a live stream. Xander, what questions do we have in the chat? Let's see. We've got you first.
Betty Ryan is saying, how do we get the hoodies with the whistles off the ground? I think maybe this is our new cadence.
That's a positive, optimistic thing to talk about.
This is our new cadence. We have a guest on Tuesday or Monday, and we launch it the next week. I don't know. I will say what everything Skolnik said was incredibly compelling to me. And to an extent, we have been doing some of this, right? We partnered with the ICE alarms earlier this year to allow people to easily sponsor whistles so they could get out to public. But I think Skolnik's right. Like there's this muscle that it would be great for our country to have, which is continually having campaigns like that grab attention, that allow people to participate, whether it's people wearing the hoodies and actual participating in the resistance, or simply just buying and sponsoring the hoodies and getting them out the door, or sponsoring a piece of infrastructure like Skolnik was talking about. So yeah, I want to see those hoodies too.
Don't sign us up for another thing. We just, the viewers, what they missed earlier today was like the intense 2-hour staff meeting where we were going through all the things that we're doing to fight back, which we're very proud and energized to do. I don't want to dime Xander out.
When we say the big staff meeting, we meant 4 people.
Yeah. Big in terms of amount of time in the day, slender in terms of the number of people participating. But Xander, I mean, like you said earlier today, if you don't mind me telling folks that this is like the most energized and motivated you've been in years, because as hard as this is, doing all of these things, trying to do them very fast with a little tiny team, it's incredibly inspiring right now.
Yeah, and I think we are learning. I think the FAFO was a great example of like finding someone like Larry Krasner, like finding the right partner early on that's ready to take the reins, that we could just judge into existence versus have to like run the ball ourselves, is a muscle we're learning to build, as we're scaling Defiance and as we're trying to win this fight.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Miles.
I was just going to say, for those of you tuning in that aren't following what Xander's talking about, we had a whole plan last week for things that we were going to cover. And, and it got derailed, but in a good way, by us wanting to respond really quickly to the craziness that we are seeing, by our members of defiance.org wanting to respond. So we helped launch the Fight Against Federal Overreach, as Xander notes, FAFO, which is going to have some news this week. If you helped support the stand-up of that network of nationwide prosecutors who are committed to holding federal agents accountable who break the law, you're going to get news tomorrow morning on that front. So stay tuned, because we're helping to scale that up. Hugely successful last week. We helped them get that off the ground and launch and raise a ton of resources. And then later in the week, we launched the Defending Independent Reporters Fund to help support Georgia Fort and Don Lemon and these other reporters arrested by the administration. And we're also giving folks the chance here in just a couple of weeks to stand up to Donald Trump. And we're holding this big in-person rebuttal to the State of the Union in Washington, D.C. And if folks don't know about that either, I urge you to go check that out, defiance.org/SOTU, SOTU, to see the crazy lineup we have of pro-democracy fighters. And by the way, these people are all coming in pro bono. It's not like, here's the lineup list. It's not like we're paying people to come in and fight for democracy. They're coming out, to stand up for what's right. And I know a ton of folks are coming to join us in person. A ton of folks have signed up to participate virtually. So take a look and come join us and be a part of that. But anyway, that's why things have been crazy. We're getting a lot of things moving to try to fight back against these abuses of power. But that's what has to be done in this moment. So anyway, that was a long way of answering your question, Betty, about whether we're going to get hoodies with whistles on them. It's possible. It might kill us to do that one extra thing. But while we're talking about whistles, I will add also, and Xander doesn't know this weekend, as I was going in and trying to make sure that all of our partners have updates from us, I saw that we had raised close to another $10,000 for our Whistles project to disseminate them around the country. So defiance.org and defiance.org members have contributed tens of thousands of these ice whistles all around the country. And I keep saying, until someone corrects me, I think we're one of the biggest distributors or providers of whistles to these communities of any group in the country.
ICE agents are going to be hearing those whistles in their sleep until
yes, they are,
for the rest of their life. Shout out to everyone, not only that supported those whistles, but all the brave people out there blowing them. I don't know if that should be the whole slogan.
All right, we'll go to Reba. Reba says, what do you need to organize the infrastructure to prepare for what is coming? What is the strategy? Well, look, one thing that I'll say is, the strategy is, like, first, if you're not a part of this organization, join this organization. This is solely why we exist. Now, Reba clearly is. Reba, you're a member of defiance.org. But folks who are not, come be in this club with us. That's what we are. It's a club for courageous Americans to fight back against these power abuses. And this Wednesday at 5 p.m., we will have our monthly members-only meeting. So usually on Wednesdays, it's Action Day here at defiance.org. We talk about our weekly mission. We talk about the actual thing we are doing to fight back against Trump and the Trump administration's abuses of power. And once a month, that meeting is closed only to defiance.org members. That's where we're going to lay out the strategy. That's where we're going to be talking about what we are seeing, the things that we are covering every day on Defiance News, on defiance.news, and how we want to respond to it, what we're going to do to organize ourselves to fight back against these very clear breaches of the Constitution and democratic norms. So if you're not a member, join us so you can be a part of the meeting on Wednesday night. We would love to have folks come be a part of the club. And if you don't know anything about us and you're just tuning in on X or on Substack or on another platform, go to defiance.org and just sign up for free for the emails and the updates and see what we're doing to fight back.
All right. We're right at time. We did it. We started on time. We're ending on time. We did it, gang.
I love it. I love it.
You want to read us out, Miles?
Yeah. Well, look, let me just say one more thing is we've got there was one last question in the chat I wanted to note out as Igor had said, what do you do about anarchist friends who say both political parties are the same and thus it's not worth voting? I just wanted to touch on that one in closing, Xander, because I wanted to say that not only does voting matter, but speaking up matters. And everything we just talked about in this episode is evidence of the fact, Igor, that this all could have gone another direction. We talked about whether states are fighting back or not. If the states had capitulated like law firms and many universities did, then we would see the Trump administration able to cut off funding to you and others and to threaten American lives. But people are going to fight back. Attorneys general in those states are going to fight back. When we talked about the president's revenge campaign flailing, the only reason it's flailing is that enough people early on had the courage to punch back. Enough lawyers had the courage to step out of the woodwork and come and represent targets of Donald Trump's revenge. And I'll speak to that personally. At first, it was hard to even find a lawyer to defend our family against what was so clearly an unconstitutional executive order to have us investigated for First Amendment protected speech. But courageous lawyers did stand up. And as we just talked about with Skolnik, people in Hollywood, they were silent months ago. Many of them are now speaking up. So it matters to vote. It matters to speak out. There is strength in numbers, as Xander said earlier, and that tide is turning. So, Xander, that gives me encouragement, and I hope people see how important these midterm elections are. And maybe this is something that we should tease next week on our weekly mission. We're going to be talking a little bit about that because our defiance.org members, which get to vote on the direction the club is going, said that this year they wanted us to do a big focus on protecting the midterm elections. And guess what? We're going to.
We're going to win them and we're going to protect them. Or protect them and win them. Whatever the correct order is there. So that is going to be a huge focus. I actually just talked to 3 or 4 different absolutely amazing org leaders today on exactly that. And so we're really excited to for the schedule we've got in store for you all and the amazing leaders that we're going to be platforming and supporting.
We're getting after it, man. We're not going to let them shut us up. We're continuing no matter what. So in the meantime, we will just say this, as always, stay loud, stay brave, friends, and stay together. This is Defiance Daily. We'll see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here.